yesterday we were, we had made tremendous progress after the Auburn game, even though it was only 2 practices. And, yesterday we were awful. I mean, just really bad, lethargic, unfocused. And I just, I tried my best to figure out a way to motivate through positivity and not, like I told you guys, because of what this past 10, 11 months has been about, not beat them down, not grind them, and from the first possession of the game today, our first defensive possession, I knew we were in trouble. Because when you're completely out of sync to the basic rules that you go into a game with, on the first possession, you got 0 chance of ever getting it right. Disappointing. That defensively, we played so well a couple days ago and then so bad today, just non-competitive, listless, no attention whatsoever to scouting reports. Really disappointed. We got outworked. Just not much I can say, about just about how disappointed I am right now.
Joe Gorchow with the first one.
Coach, I'm curious, based on what you just said, do you feel that maybe the guys took the game for granted a little bit defensively because they just came off a great performance, so maybe they just thought they'd come out and everything would click? I mean, do you sense that, or am I just overreaching here?
No, we were bad yesterday, Joe. We performed in practice yesterday very, very similar to how we performed in the game today. We even showed them yesterday in scouting report the fact that we came in here and we were at the time 18-12 with an RPI, net of 60. And we showed them that was what the television put on before the game. And we were one of those teams that if we had won here, we pretty much solidify ourselves in the NCAA tournament if there would have been one. And we came in here last year and just not as bad as this year, but very similar. And just to show them, we owe these guys one. And just that's where my disappointment comes in from. It comes in from we don't play consistently the way that my teams have always played. And there's a certain resolve and a certain fight that all my teams have always had. And I can't get it out of these guys on a consistent basis. And I've got to do my job. It's my job to lead. It's my job to figure things out. It's my job to find out how we can be so connected and excited 3 days ago and the complete opposite today. It's my job to figure all that out.
Colin?
I wanted to ask about the offense a little bit. I think 16 turnovers, 13 assists on 31 made buckets. Just, are you happy with your offensive production in that, or where do you feel like that can grow and the biggest improvements you guys need to make?
Well, if you combine the turnovers and the air balls, you could probably double that number. I mean, I've never been on a team that shot so many air balls as we shot today. Going into the game, offensively, our whole thought process was anytime they're in a set defense, if we're in the open court, go be aggressive. Anytime they're in a set defense, you cannot attack them on the first side or on the first pass. You need to work the offense and trust in each other and pass it and cut and screen. and get the ball from side A to side B to side C, to be able to get them out of the paint and then attack them. And the first time we had the ball, we attacked on the first pass. And, once again, it's not what we spoke about doing. It wasn't offensively the game plan. We scored some baskets late in the game that make stats look better. But it's I think I was asked this on my radio show a couple of days ago. Stats are irrelevant, man. Stats are stats are for selfish people. There's only one stat that matters, and that's does your team play connected, and does your team score more points than the opponent? And right now we're very inconsistent with being connected.
Michael and Anna.
Frank, what did you see from Trey Hannibal out there tonight? It seemed like he was having a good game for you guys out there when he was playing the point, and obviously, it looked like he got a little banged up there in the second half too. Is he doing okay? What do you know about his status?
Yeah, he played with a little energy and enthusiasm, and so he stuck out like a sore thumb today. Just because his energy and enthusiasm was not something that was kind of coming off everyone else. So when he went in there, at least he brought that, and it showed that. Now he tried to take that charge, and it was a pretty intense collision, and he was airborne and landed flat on his back. Then once he was out of the game, his back tightened up a little bit. And because of the score, I wasn't going to put him back out there. Our trainer feels like he's going to be okay.
Dick Cox.
When you were able to get off to the bad start and got 17 down, and then you made the good run and cut it to 3, did you feel like maybe you'd gotten over the hump and could get back in the game, or did you feel like that it was going to be a tough night the whole night?
Yeah, it's like everyone else. You go out, you do some things the right way. You actually compete with a little fire. You pay attention to scouting report a little bit, and things start happening the right way, and then come down and go turnover for layup, and a short closeout and give up a 3. And now you're down, 12, 14, whatever it was right away. That's a problem. This team's had a major problem with the runs that we give up. I talk about basketball's a game of runs. Basketball, it's some team's going to go on an 8-2 run. Some team's going to go on a 10-3 run, whatever it may be. The team that wins is the team that controls that moment the best. So that means instead of letting somebody go on a 10-0 run, when they go on a 6-0 run, you settle down, then you go get a basket, and you stop the bleeding, and then you counter with your own run. And, we kind of made a run when we were down, whatever it was, 17, 16, whatever in the first half. And then when they made a run, we never really presented another challenge again. Not only did they make a run, they made a huge run and just popped the game wide open again.
On.
Questions for you. I think Keyshawn played just 7 minutes in the second half. Was he banged up, or was that a coach's decision?
He had 4 fouls. And, I probably should have put him, back in there. I put him in. He had 3 fouls. I put him in, I want to say at the 19-minute mark of the second half, and he committed a foul. And then, 3-4 minutes later, committed his 4th foul. And I took him out. I probably could have paid him, put him back in a little bit sooner, but I didn't. And, I think he went back in with about 6 minutes to go, if I'm not mistaken. And, but I could have put him back in, and he could have fouled out at the 12-minute mark. And so his minutes would not have changed.
And I guess you mentioned after the Auburn game, you had some reflecting to do. I guess after a night like this, what do you do, and kind of how do you personally, mentally kind of process it?
Yeah, Auburn game, we hadn't played well in forever. It's Texas A&M. We just what what their talent is offensively didn't expose us that day. And I'm not talking about individual player talent. I'm talking about the things they do offensively didn't expose us that day. Here's the deal, Colin. You can change X's and O's and strategies all you want. If your players are not connected, I don't care what strategies used, it doesn't work. And so like what I said earlier. The reflecting I got to do right now is I got to figure out a way how we can be so connected for 3 days and so disconnected for the last 48 hours. That's the part that's really confusing, and especially this year. It's just it's an interesting dynamic that we're in right now. And when I say we, I'm talking about our team. So it's my job. I don't speak about myself very often, but for 35 years, people think I've done my job pretty good. And I feel pretty confident that for 35 years, I've done my job pretty good. This year's different, and it's a completely different challenge than any team I've ever led. So I got to figure it out. It's what I've done in the past, and I'll work real hard to figure it out again this year.
Cam Gaskins.
Coach, you kind of touched on it there at the end of your last answer, but I wanted to ask a little bit differently. With a practice like yesterday where you said you guys were just terrible, how more frustrating are practices like that, knowing how little you guys have had the chance to practice this year and actually having a chance the last 2 weeks to get some consistent time on the court? How much more does that make a practice like that just make you confused and frustrated, I guess is what you were getting at there?
Call anyone that's ever played for me and ask them that question. It's you call Sindarius Thornwell and ask him what he thinks. Call Chris Silva. Call Michael Carrera. I don't care who you call. Call every one of those guys and ask them, like, how important is it to Frank to practice the right way? Just, I think that makes for a great story. It's because it would bring in some of the history of what we've worked so hard to create here in the previous 8 years, and it'll give you a little understanding as to why this year's so confusing for me, and so difficult for me, because I'm all about standing up tall in difficult times. I'm all about playing for your teammate. I'm all about playing for your school. And we do that at times this year. Look at the Houston game. Just rewind the pre-COVID shutdown, because we can't sit around and continue to blame everything on COVID. Pre-COVID shutdown. We went into Houston and battled our tails off, and we're up 4 at the half. We come out, we make a 3 to go up 7, and Houston just changed the channel, and we came apart at the seams like the suits I used to buy before I became a head coach. And that continues to happen now, to our basketball team. And the reason I couldn't figure that out earlier, I felt that in the Houston game, but the reason I couldn't figure it out earlier is because we got shut down for 7 weeks, and I couldn't, or whatever it was, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then shut down again for another 10 days. I couldn't confirm what my feelings were after the Houston game on December the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I had to wait till January to start figuring it out, which was the Auburn game. And I thought we can find something to create trust and faith, player to player, but by changing some of the X's and O's. But obviously that didn't work real good. It worked for a day, but it's you got to be committed to what you do every day, not once a week or twice a week or whatever it may be.
All right, we got time for 2 more. John Whittle.
Yeah, Frank, you've mentioned a couple of times that it's hard to push the guys. It's hard with the pauses and COVID and so forth. One of the announcers said in his pregame chat with you that it's hard, that you can't demand winning on game days, and that's making it difficult. does there become a point in the season where you've got to push them a little bit harder, or do you think that you're pushing them as hard as you can right now, as hard as you feel comfortable in doing?
I try to push every day, John. I try to push every day. I don't take days like this very well. That's why I said to whoever asked the question earlier, I apologize, I don't remember. Call the former players. Let them tell you what my expectation level is for an everyday approach to what we do. This is a complicated year, man. Complicated year. John, if you push the way you usually push, or excuse me, I don't mean you like you. I mean you like coaches. I can tell you there's a lot of coaches in the country battling this right now. Okay. They all get their year back and they all can transfer and play immediately on top of all the COVID and all the shutdowns and all that stuff. It's a complicated year. So I've got to figure out a way, like the sports that were one semester sports, they could push and all that because the guys who are going to transfer at the end of the semester. We're a 2-semester sport. If I would have been if I'd attacked the practices and the approach the way I usually do, we might have had guys transfer mid-year and not have enough guys to finish the season with. And that's fact. I mean, look at Bob Huggins. He's a dear friend of mine. I mean, he and I speak on a regular basis. He had his best player get up and leave in the middle of the year, and just because he wasn't happy with getting pushed. And it's just the environment, the perfect storm that's been created between COVID and the different rules that that came into play this past year. And I just use Hugs because he's a friend. I know he's not going to get mad, but look around the country. A bunch of people went through that semester. And I'm talking about winning coaches. And so, it's, John, I don't have the answer to that, what you asked me, like right now. But that's where I tell you, I've been a head coach. This is year 36 for me. I've been a head coach for 29 of those 36 years. Before this year, I've been able to figure that out pretty good. I'm pretty lucky that I've been able to figure that out. And, am I going to be able to figure it out this year? I don't know. But if you were a betting man, I wouldn't bet against me figuring that out. But I can tell you what doesn't work is we're not connected as a team every day, and that's the part that's really, really hard to fix right now. Because you don't fix being connected in games. You fix being connected in practice and by making things real. The reason you create camaraderie on a team is because you make things really hard and you hold everyone accountable the same way. This has been really hard this year because of the lack of consistency, number one, and the environment. And so we'll figure it out. It's a lot of people ready to jump off the ship last year when we lost to Stetson. I think we figured that one out, and there are a lot of people ready to jump off the ship the Final Four year because we lost to Alabama in the conference tournament. I think we figured that one out. And, so it'll be all right.
All right. Last question goes to Dick Cox.
I think AJ said there was a lack of communication on the floor tonight. How frustrating is it for you to have changed your style and gone to a more suitable type of defense and show the players it worked last game, and then to see them commit 22 fouls tonight and send Vanderbilt to the free throw line 27 times? I mean, what else can you do? Because, when your situation.
Dick, it all comes down to there's a self-accountability. There's a desire to stand up strong when things are really competitive. And, we changed the defense because I thought that we were getting so spread out the way I try to coach and we had not had the practices to get better at those things and then help us. So we're not on our heels fouling. So we changed the defense. And all Vanderbilt did today was drive the ball. They didn't run anything. They ran a couple little things a little differently than Georgia. They ran a lot of the same floor spacing ideas. But they drove the ball and they got all the way to the rim. And we're supposed to be in gaps, not denying, to prevent the ball from getting in the rim. But we were not very good on the ball, and the guys off the ball didn't commit to helping each other, and then we just started fouling, and when you play that contained defense, then the most important part of the whole deal is now you're going to be in closeouts. So closeouts can't be short. Closeouts can't lack energy. And from the first play of the game, we lack of energy closeout on Dylan Dessou, and we give him a 3, and we know that's what he's going to do. And that's the play I'm talking about. That it's not that they ran a special play first play of the game. It's that we had to close on him and had to provide energy and aggression on the closeout, and we didn't do it. And when you don't do that, the first play of the game, as a coach, like, okay, antennas go up. This might be a problem the rest of the night. And it never stopped. I mean, the amount of layups, fouls, and open threes that we gave up were really, really hard to watch.